All right, well, thank you for joining me on this drive in this 2018 Tesla Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive. A recent addition to our inventory. We actually purchased this directly from its current owners, or previous owners, I should say. They bought a new Model Y. They didn't need this anymore, and I think we were just offering them a little bit more for it than their trade-in value, so they opted to sell it to us. Lucky for us. And the big reason why I'm driving this one is because this one has a full self-driving capability, which is a pretty nice option. Full self-driving capability right now, as of May 2023, is $15,000. When they first started offering, I think the full self-driving, it was like $3,000. Then it was, you know, $6,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, and now it's $15,000. And what Tesla's doing is the further along the software goes, the more the price increases. And I think, you know, this is not, you know, this is just my speculation. This is not like, you know, what we've heard from Tesla. But I think that when full self-driving capability is completely there, and it's out of beta, and it's actually to the point where a car can drive itself without human supervision, I don't think you'll be able to buy it anymore. I think you'll only be able to get it as software as a service. Just like these days, you can't buy Microsoft Office, you can't buy Adobe Photoshop, you can only subscribe to it. So those who are willing to purchase the software before it's fully ready yet, they have the opportunity to maybe get it at a substantially cheaper price versus when it's finished, or they'll be in a position where they can own the software where no one else will be able to. It's only subscription, and you have you know, the continuous updates on the software for as long as you own this vehicle. And some people wonder, well, how do I know if I'm going to keep the full self-driving capability when it transfers? Yeah, there is that fear that when you transfer accounts from one owner to another, that you could lose that full self-driving capability software. But I can tell you, we've owned many Teslas with full self-driving capability and sold them to customers, and none of them have lost the software. What we do is we have our own corporate Tesla account, so we transfer the Teslas when we buy them onto our Tesla account. And the big reason is Tesla won't give you the time of day unless you own the vehicle in their eyes. You have it in your Tesla account. You can't service it. You can't really do anything with it. So if we want to service a Tesla, supercharge it, we need to add them to our account. You can see it says full self-driving capability. This one has 60,720 miles. So long range Model 3 has a fully charged range of about 300 miles. But for everyday driving, Tesla only recommends that you charge to about 90% for the health of the lithium-ion batteries. It's okay occasionally to charge to 100%. You have this slider right here for charging, and you can control how much the battery charges. And you can also use the app too. So you can use this slider, and that will limit how far the battery charges. Obviously we want to keep the batteries happy and healthy as long as possible. And some people ask, well, how long do batteries last in Teslas? So we've had, you know, Teslas since around 2008, 2010 with the Roadster, then the Model S in 2012. So there's plenty of examples of Teslas with, you know, over 100,000, 200. There's actually some Teslas with 500 and 1,000 and 1,000,000 miles. But the general consensus is that over 20 years, or about 200,000 miles, the battery will lose about 10 to 20% capacity. So instead of being able to charge to 100%, you know, you only have about 80 to 90% capacity, which isn't bad. I mean, if you look at a you know, 200,000 mile car, you know, it's probably not going to be making all its horsepower that it did when it was brand new. But the nice thing about EVs is that they're a lot simpler. They're not as complex as gas cars. So you don't have, you know, thousands of moving parts. You don't have oil leaks and transmission issues and coolant issues. Catalytic converters can go bad. They're a lot simpler. Okay, so let's talk about the good part. Let's talk about the full self-driving capability. So basically, to use it, you need to enter in a destination where you want to drive. So we're going to go to Dave's in Milton. Alright, and so the vehicle is going to navigate us to Dave's in Milton, not too far away. And then I'm going to activate the full self-driving by using the stock right here. I'm going to push it down twice. The steering wheel is highlighted in blue. That means it's in full self-driving. I can use this slider here to control how fast we're going. and you can see that the car wants to change lanes, and we're changing lanes over here. And the car will, what we do call, will nag you. It will, you know, remind you, hey, put your hand in the wheel. There's a pressure point right here, so if you squeeze it, that will let the car know that, you know, you have your hand in the wheel. Or sometimes if you just play with these wheels right here, that's also a way to eliminate the nag. But sometimes, you know, the Tesla will let you drive for about a minute or two before it nags you to touch the wheel. So we're in a little bit more of a complex driving situation going this rotary, and you can see that the vehicle's handling it pretty good. It's you know, maybe going a little bit faster, but it's going to recognize the speed limit over here to 25. I'm going to raise the speed limit here to 30. The nice thing too about full self-driving is that you can make it go faster than the posted speed limit. I know there are some roads where people don't like to go the speed limit or 5 over. There's some roads where people naturally go 10 miles and over, and you're going to have people up on your butt, or you're going to be impeding traffic if you try, you know, going the speed limit or 5 over. So it's nice that Tesla to do that. Then we're going to have a left-hand turn coming up here, and you can see the car's putting the signal on. It's getting us into the left-hand lane, and it's quite amazing how far this software has come. It's not, you know, perfect. I actually have a Tesla myself, a full self-driving capability, a similar one to this. Mine's a 2019 Standard Range Plus. I've had it about 6 months, and I can tell you, when I first got it, the full self-driving software is not anywhere as near as it's good now, and that's the amazing thing about it. I've had maybe about 3 updates, and it's improved drastically. I use it all the time. I have it drive me to work, drive me home, drive it to daycare to pick up my kids, and there are, you know, when I first got it, I would probably have to do maybe, you know, 5 or if not more interventions, because it's doing something, you know, dangerous, or, you know, it's not doing something right, or I'm impeding traffic, or doing something crazy, or I have to take over. And if you want to take over, it's fairly easy. You can put your foot in the brake, that will shut it off. You can push the stalk up, or you can just, you know, take control of the wheel, and that will deactivate the full self-driving. But, you know, people say, oh, well, you know, it's dangerous and things like that. Well, it is dangerous if you're not paying attention, but that's the whole thing about it. It's in beta, and us using this software makes it better. So, you know, Tesla is using this data right now with the vehicle driving, and they're using this data to improve the software, and the car will get a software update, and then the car will be driving even better. So maybe eventually it will be driving better than a human. It also does a pretty good job, you know, lane positioning, you know, if it needs to make a left or a right-hand turn lane or merging. Sometimes it gets a little wonky where you don't want to annoy someone, or you don't want the, you know, the person to think that you're being a meanie. So you'll be, you know, I'll take over and let maybe a car merge in front of me or something like that. But as you can see, this car is doing a remarkable job, you know, driving. See, it's giving me the snag right now. Hey, put your hand in the wheel. If you do not respond to it, the full self-driving will deactivate, and you won't be able to use it till you put the vehicle in park and start another driving session. So, you know, and I think it's smart, because obviously, as great as the system is, it does still need human supervision. It might do the worst thing at the worst time. But I can tell you, you know, for the most part, when I first drove my car under full self-driving, I was shaking. You know, it was exciting. It was also a little scary, because it's a sensation that I'm not used to, your car driving for you. Now that I've become comfortable of it, I've driven thousands of miles under full self-driving. I've become very comfortable of it, and I know the system's limitations. I know areas where we'll get hung up and have a difficult time, and I'll be ready to intervene. But you know, in a situation like this is a pretty easy does-it back road. There's not a lot of you know, complicated driving situations. So this is an area where you can kind of relax a little bit and you know, really enjoy. You can, you know, maybe take your eyes off the road for a couple seconds to maybe look at some scenery or something like that, or driving on the highway. You know, you wouldn't believe the mental workload it takes just to keep the vehicle centered in this lane on the highway. And that's even the amazing part about Autopilot. I mean, Tesla's Autopilot alone is an amazing system, and it does also work on back roads like this, but there are limitations to it. compared to the full self-driving. The full self-driving is really the flagship software, and Tesla thinks that a good part of the money it makes in the future is not going to come from, you know, building cars. It's going to be, you know, come from having a fleet of robo-taxis or people, you know, buying this software. They think it's so good that, you know, everyone's going to want it when they solve it. And, you know, it's up to speculation how long or if or when they'll be able to solve the full self-driving. But just me seeing how much it's improved over the last 6 months, I think they're definitely going to be able to solve it. And it'll get to the point where a car will be able to drive without human intervention. Well, there you have it. It's navigated us to Dave's in Milton without any drama. I really haven't had to do any interventions or anything like that, and it's worked fantastic. So now let's go back to work. Head back to work. And you know, the one amazing thing about Tesla, and talking about you know, the full self-driving capability and the over-the-air updates, it's not just, you know, getting over-the-air updates for the full self-driving. It's getting over-the-air updates, and so many aspects of the vehicle is improving. Like the emergency braking is constantly getting updated. The autopilot systems are getting updated. They're constantly upgrading the display, adding features like Netflix, Hulu, TikTok, Disney Plus. They're adding video games, adding new features to the toy box. This car was built, you know, in 2018, but it wasn't until I think 2021 that they got an update, and now you have blind spot cameras. So when you put on the turn signal, now you have blind spot cameras. So this is a vehicle, even though it gets older, in a lot of ways, it gets better. All right. So we're gonna navigate ourselves back to Infiniti of Tacoma. You know, and aside from, you know, having the full self-driving, you know, obviously, which I'm talking a lot about this video, just the car itself, how smooth it is, how nice it is to drive. It's a wonderful driving vehicle, even not talking about the full self-driving capability. So this is a little bit more of a complex driving situation. We have traffic coming from this direction. These people are letting me in, you know, give them a wave. So in that situation, what I did is the car was a little hesitant. So what I did is I just tapped on the accelerator a little bit to encourage the car to go. So I'm just saying, I'm not overriding the software, I'm not shutting it off, but the cool thing about the full self-driving software, if it's a little bit hesitant to pull out and you can see things are clear, maybe you're in a rotary and it's just being a little bit too nervous, a little bit too cautious, you can give the throttle a little bit of nudge and it's like, okay, go, it's fine. And the car will go without shutting the software off, which is exactly what we did in that situation. The car was doing the right thing, stopping for traffic, but it, you know, obviously the AI couldn't tell that the person was waving me and letting me go. So, but maybe at some point it might be able to do some things like that. Be able to identify hand signals from other drivers. I don't know. So, you know, charging. So home charging, you don't need to have a complex, you know, home charger installed. Just with the EV charger you get from Tesla, you can get multiple adapters for different charging outlets. For the first 6 months of my ownership of the Tesla, I just had a 120 outlet, just a little 3-prong outlet what I charged off of. I don't drive a lot. Maybe I drive 20-30 miles a day. So coming home from work, I can add about 60 to 70 miles of range overnight just off of a little 120 3-prong outlet, which I did fine for 6 months. There's a couple times where I had to supercharge, or if, you know, it wasn't fully charged, I still had enough range, and eventually on the weekend I could catch up. But, you know, if you do need to charge faster, more than, you know, adding 5 miles per hour, which is what you're going to get from a little 120 outlet or 110 outlet, you can get a 1450 plug installed at your house. And there's an adapter for the charger, which goes to the, you know, that 1450 plug. I think I said it wrong. It's kind of like the dryer plug. It's a 220 outlet, which I just recently installed outside our house. And now it charges about 32 miles per hour. So a lot faster. So I can get a full charge fairly quickly. And I've had some people, you know, complain, oh, my electric bill got jacked up you know, when I installed that, you know, heavy duty, you know, charging plug. Well, the nice thing about Tesla is you can do scheduled charging. And we all know utility rates aren't fixed. Often, you know, the utility companies will charge rates depending on, you know, the usage or time of day. So what I do is I can, on my Tesla app, I can set it up to start charging at 12 a.m. So at 12 a.m. most people are sleeping, so the general workload on the grid is the lowest. So that's when I, you know, charge my Tesla. So every night when I plug my Tesla, and I can plug it in, but it won't charge until 12 a.m. And that will, you know, help me get the lowest charging costs for the, you know, what the utilities are charging. Pretty amazing. All right, this is a little bit of a tough one for the Teslas, and mine often have a little bit of difficulty in this rotary. It's a 2-lane rotary, but when I first got my Tesla, it could not do this rotary at all. It would just freak out. But now it's come a long way. I do sometimes need to hit the throttle to encourage it to go. It's going on its own right now. It's getting a little bit nervous, so I'm going to just tap the throttle a little bit to help it go. It sees these cars pulling up, so it's being cautious and it wants to slow down. And just nudging the throttle a little bit just to encourage it to go through the rotary, and took my foot off the throttle, and it's back on its own. So, as you can see, it's quite amazing. There is no other car that we can buy that can drive to this ability. You know, they have Waymo taxis, and, you know, Cruise has their robo taxis they're testing, but they have, like, you know, $200,000 you know, LiDAR units on the top of their roofs, sensors and cameras all around it. This is just a regular Tesla, just like anyone can buy. So pretty much every Tesla built after 2019, they all have the full self-driving computer. So they're all capable of running the software. They're all capable of full self-driving without any fancy LiDAR units or extra cameras, just with, you know, the equipment's on the vehicle. And that's the amazing thing about full self-driving capability, is that, you know, one day when they can solve it, there'll be millions of Teslas on the road that can get an over-the-air update, and all of a sudden there's self-driving robo-taxis. Is it going to happen? I don't know 100%. I think it's going to happen, but, you know, time will tell. I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of how long it will take. You know, some people think, you know, Elon thinks it could happen this year. Some people think it could be a couple years, 5 years, or 10 years. But just based off the progression of the software, it's quite amazing. And think about that. You know, if you buy a brand new Tesla, if you want full self-driving, you know, software, you can subscribe for $200 a month. But if you want to own it, you have to pay $15,000 on top of the MSRP. If you buy a used, you know, Tesla, a used Model 3, you know, for $30,000, and you want to, you know, and it doesn't have the full self-driving software, you have to pay $15,000. So all of a sudden, you know, you're paying $45,000 for that Tesla. This Tesla that we have for sale has the full self-driving capability, and it's included in the price. And we're probably maybe asking a couple $1,000s more for it than a Tesla, similar Tesla without it. So I think it's a bargain. I think we should probably get a lot more for it, but I just don't think people know enough about it to really understand it. I think if a lot more people could get behind the wheel and experience it, they'd be quite amazed. And you know, I often drive people, like I had my stepdad in the car, and I didn't tell him the full self-driving was on, and we drove all the way, you know, to our house, about 40 minutes, and he didn't even realize it. You know, he was looking around talking, but the car was, you know, driving so well on its own, he didn't have any idea. It wasn't jerky or slamming on its brakes. So it's definitely improved a lot. Well, thank you so much for maybe a little bit of a long-winded video about the full self-driving, but definitely cool. I love my Tesla. I don't see myself getting rid of it anytime soon. I really don't want to drive any other vehicle. I often find myself, you know, if I have to do errands for work, I'm taking a Tesla from work because I want the autopilot, or I'll drive my own Tesla with the full self-driving. I mean, I'm the used car manager. I can drive any car I want on the lot. No one's gonna, you know, ask me, you know, what I'm doing. I could drive a $100,000 Range Rover for an errand. It's, you know, but most of the time I'm gonna take a Tesla just because it's the least amount of work to drive, and they're awesome. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. We're gonna plug this into the charger, and there we go.